For the next keynote here on the Gold Standard stage, we're excited to welcome Kevin OLeary, Shark Tank shark and founder of OLeary Financial Group. Kevin will be joined by Anne Truesdale, co-founder and CEO of Furlicious, and Rob Mueller, CEO of Boost Oxygen. And all three of them will be interviewed by Christina Gustafson, ShopTalk Special Content Advisor.
Great. Well, it is a massive crowd out there, guys. Hopefully not as much pressure as it was pitching to this guy on Shark Tank, but really excited to have not only one of the original Shark Tank sharks here with us today, but the founders of two of the businesses that won his investment, which I think we all know is a very challenging thing to do. Kevin, let's start with you, though. We've already heard it's only half a day into ShopTalk. What a challenging environment it is for companies like The Gap, for the consumer, but we haven't really heard a lot yet about what it's like to be an investor in this environment. So how is the macro environment that we are currently in impacting the types of businesses that you are funding and maybe even how you're doing deals?
So investors have gotten very savvy about this space over the last 4 or 5 years. And it turns out what they look at first has the company figured out a way to take their story, build a community, because that's really what works now in terms of consumer goods and services. But the way they measure it is just two measurements, CAC and ROAS. Because if you're going to invest in a startup, let's say, if you think about companies, 62% of jobs in America created companies that are 5 to 500 employees. So you want to kind of catch them at that 5 to 8 million in run rate. They've proven their idea. But have they figured out how to acquire a customer profitably? And is it sustainable even if you get enough time to see what the attrition rate is? So the whole deal is CAC and ROAS now, because if you buy into a company that hasn't figured out CAC, they basically go bankrupt, advertising themselves into oblivion. That's one aspect. And the other, have they diversified into television? Because what's happened out there in social media land when people just would launch and sell direct to consumer during the pandemic, that's not working as much anymore. It's gotten really expensive, as you will hear from these two companies here I invested in. They're both experimenting with television because they found lower CAC, and it's a brand new way to get to customers that they weren't able to do before. So we're in a new mode now, post-pandemic. The answer is, show me your CAC, show me your ROAS. I'm interested in the rest, but as I like to sing, CAC and ROAS, CAC and ROAS. That's all I care about.
I love it. Well, what a great tune that will definitely be stuck in all of our heads for the rest of the conference. Anne, I want to go over to you. As was mentioned by the lovely voice of God when you were walking on stage, you are the co-founder and CEO of a company called Furlicious, which sells instant Vietnamese pho noodles. I think, these days, if you're an AI startup, great, probably raising capital, well, I don't know, it isn't all that hard. It probably is. I'm oversimplifying things, but I think it's particularly tough for consumer businesses like yours. And I think what's really interesting about you and your company is you actually just pitched Kevin a couple of months ago. So we were in this difficult environment. Other than CAC and ROAS, what do you think it was about your pitch that stood out and made him invest in the business that could maybe help some of the other founders in this environment?
So I think for us, what got Kevin's attention is the pitch was impactful. We didn't just create a product. We created from the heart. So I feel, in order to get that, you have to have authenticity and heart. My mom's secret recipe, we had this authentic recipe, and we created a mission out of it. The mission is to, I want to share her recipe to everyone, all right? And we were able to make it scalable and, of course, make profit, right? Yep. You make profit. So you got that. And then the hustle. I was an ER nurse. My husband was a hotel manager. And we saw this mission. We both quit our jobs. We sold our house. And we moved the whole family into a camper. And we took all of that fundings and we just pumped it into the business. So that commitment, dedication, it shows that we are betting on ourselves. The investors, they don't have to bet on us. They know we already betted on ourselves. And then in the end, the numbers. You got to have the numbers. It's all about, you got to have efficient CAC, you got to have, low CPA and things like that. It's just, Wonder Ads had helped us. Kevin came to us and he said, have you guys tried TV advertisement? We are a startup company. We don't have the budget. So when he said TV advertisement, I was like, that's expensive. We don't have that kind of budget. But to find out, we experimented for the past couple weeks and it has exceeded our expectations. So we are very happy with that, with the brand building part of this journey now.
Yeah, I love that. And it's kind of that ability to continue telling that brand story, tell that story of differentiation in the market. And it was a great tee up for me to talk to you about Wonder Ads, Kevin. I think you are always known for really taking a hands-on approach to your portfolio companies. So to me, Wonder Ads is just kind of the latest example of this. But maybe tell the audience a little bit about what it is and why you decided to launch it.
Yeah, we had a company during the pandemic, a financial services company, direct to consumer. We started spending heavily on television because that was working in a pandemic when you had the captured audience. And we were getting up to like $2 million a month and doing all the mistakes that a company can do, like buying directly from a network and getting absolutely screwed in that process and not having any dashboard by which to measure any of the results. And then I remembered I did a keynote for a company called Tatari 3 years earlier in San Francisco, and I met the CEO, Philip, so I just cold called him. I said, listen, I'm getting screwed here, and I want to figure out, is there a better way to do this? Because I remember you had some major clients there in the audience when I gave that keynote. He said, yeah, we can help you. And within weeks, we had engaged in the testing, and we were getting really incredible measuring results that we figure out, oh, the Golf Channel is working better than this, linear television, whatever it was. We'd pour gasoline on that till we burnt it out. We shot 15s, we shot 30s, we shot 60s. It really worked. And I said, look, this is great for big businesses spending $2 million a week. What about my guys? Why don't we form a partnership and launch Wonder Ads? Mm-hmm. Because really what Anna's doing here is she's using a very interesting aspect of the platform to just go after customers that visited her website and didn't buy, mm-hmm. and re-engaging with them, and it works. She's just done 2 weeks. We're going to hear from Rob in a minute. He's engaged on the platform. He's killing it because television in many ways is better than social media. The person is captive. It's that lump sitting on the sofa. You're not competing with scrolling up and down in doom scrolling on your phone. You're saying, oh, I'm watching this thing, and oh, there's an ad that means something to me. This shit works. That's what I'm telling people, and I'm all over it. It's almost 40% of our spend now.
That's very interesting. And, I think for those of you guys that aren't familiar with Tatari, I think what's really interesting about their platform, you can buy streaming, you can buy linear. You also, as you kind of alluded to, have that retargeting opportunity, which goes across both platforms as well as digital videos. So I think that's...
Not to make them sound bigger than they already are, but they're the only platform I could find in America that does all of television. Lots of new startups saying, oh, we're just doing streaming, just doing digital. I need the old TV too. I'm agnostic. I want to find the very best way to do this. And let's just talk to Rob because he's using the entire pie of TV, not any one, and is using just the retargeting, which is another tool. But you're all over the place in terms of the whole big picture of TV, right?
Yeah, sure. You use the term killing it. We sell oxygen, so we don't like to use the word kill.
Well, we try not to kill people. That analogy, yeah.
So we use a lot of TV. It's pretty new for us the past year, based on your suggestion. And for example, we sell Boost Oxygen. It's an oxygen canister. Probably seen it in Denver, the Rocky Mountains. Heretofore, it's been for altitude sickness and altitude acclimation. But we're trying to expand our customer base. And what you said before, around 70% of our business before we started TV was just based in the mountains. And we do radio advertising in the mountains. We've done billboards in the mountains, a lot of different things. But we wanted outside the mountains because shortness of breath, which oxygen helps with, isn't just for people who go to Breckenridge. So we want people at C-level, Miami, Texas, a lot of different places, to realize that we were for other purposes. So we tried out, we found Tatari and Wonder Ads through Kevin, and started doing that, and it's been a huge success. It's and not just with the baby boomers who we're targeting, but all from Gen Z, Gen X, and everyone, millennials, everyone in between. So it's been a real boon.
Yeah, I think you guys have doubled revenue since you were on Shark Tank back in 2019. So what's kind of been working for you on these different platforms as you have expanded that audience?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, definitely different platforms, and we've doubled since actually COVID was the big event for Oxygen
that makes sense.
After Shark Tank. But the biggest thing actually of growth since the COVID it has been definitely TV. And it's been able to reach people that we normally wouldn't reach, even through social media. And we tried a lot of that as well, and we still do as part of the mix. But the greater part of the mix is now TV.
I think that we're going to be hearing a lot about diversification of marketing spend over the next couple of days. We've already heard about it in a couple of the new market sessions earlier, but obviously that means more content. So what type of content? I know Kevin mentioned a couple of different length spots that you guys are experimenting with, but what's working for you in terms of length? Is it the gritty production? Is it the really high polished videos?
So we've tried both. We've actually tried influencer marketing, celebrity influencer marketing, and Kevin's been great. Maybe you've seen the commercials on Fox, CNN, ESPN, Reels we're on. So the high res, and it's great production value. We've had some lower res productions, which have done pretty well as well. I think the celebrity influencer endorsement has been the better served in terms of ROAS and CAC. But yeah, no, it's sometimes the more realistic, low res type of campaigns also do well. But by far, like I say, 75-25 in terms of what we're able to do A/B test on the various platforms. Kevin's been great for us.
Yeah, so basically what I'm hearing, Kevin, is you just have to be an influencer for every company in the audience, and then I'll knock it out of the park.
We learned something, particularly during the heavy span pandemic on television, shooting $500,000 productions in Miami, full, scripts, the whole thing. They did not perform as well as just doing something gritty in vertical format on a cell phone. So I realized you don't know until you test. And so if you have a message, you think you have a story you want to tell, shoot a 15, shoot a 30, shoot a 59, test it. And that leads right back to Wonder Ads. Test everything. Test it. Every assumption you make, you're going to be wrong until you test. The numbers don't lie. People get so emotional in this industry about, oh, this creative is so beautiful. It's all BS if it doesn't make you any money. Like, that's the whole thing. And I meet all these great artists, and it's got a blah, 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 woof, 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 woof. I said, well, what's the ROAS on this ad? Oh, we don't worry about that. We're brand building. That's the code for I don't know what the beep I'm doing.
Yeah.
If somebody tells you that you're spending your money to build your brand and you're not getting a really high ROAS and a low CAC, they have no idea what they're doing. Avoid with extreme prejudice.
Well, I also think what's really interesting, just kind of taking this conversation full circle, is it used to be sort of brand building or performance, and it kind of feels like with solutions like Tatari, with Wonder Ads, you're kind of able to do both and make sure that you are measuring.
Every Tuesday, you're going to sit down and say, what worked last week? Pour gasoline here, cut this thing off. You become very promiscuous. You don't give a damn about brand or network or anything. You're just saying, this worked for us, we're going here. I said this earlier, I think. For us, Golf Channel and financial services, we milked that puppy dry. I don't think there was an ad left there we didn't turn over. So, and then we moved on to whatever else worked. Be promiscuous, test everything, and the only expert is low CAC, high ROAS. Doesn't matter how crazy the message is, and you'll burn it out after about 90 days. Next.
Yeah. What time scale are you looking at to measure the results?
In terms of, how do you mean?
Return on ad spend. Do you want immediate results from the boost oxygen
two's
ad?
Not enough. Two's a break even. If you got a 50% gross margin product, 3.5 minimum, we've got as high as 7.5. So when you find 7.5, you milk it. 5 is a gold mine. But what matters first is you really got to make sure you got CAC nailed. You got to get that nailed, because you'll go out of business if you don't nail that.
Well, I know Kevin alluded earlier to some smart stuff that you have been doing with retargeting. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like in practice and why it's been so effective for you guys?
So a small startup company like us, it's really important that we get our brands out there. So for brand recognition, we are using Wonder Ads for retargeting. So we are using it on streaming TV, online video ads, and like I said, it's just been a couple weeks, and we've seen really, really great results from it. What we want to do is just, get everybody to see the brand. They recognize us. They had, to try to build that trust because we're so new. And so if we can get that across, the next time they walk down the aisle at H-E-B, Walmart, Sam's Club, they're like, oh, I know this. And they have, Mama's 2 secret recipe in here. And so they're more prone to trust it and just, take it off the shelf.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too, because I know wholesale distribution is one of your key growth levers going forward. So thinking about how those two things can work in parallel is probably very important to you, as well as some of the other businesses in the audience. Kevin, though, I know we've talked a lot about TV. I would be remiss not to ask about TikTok. I think that's the elephant in the room. You've got the bid out there. What's the latest, and what's plan B if they decide not to sell?
Well, the people involved there are many people involved in trying to save TikTok right now. It's a very complicated situation. It's the only time in history Congress has put out a law specifically against a private company. You may think, regardless of what you think about it, it's the law. And then the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 and made a further definition on pages 5 and 6 of that ruling that are very, very interesting to work with. And so we'll know pretty soon. There are some great ideas. I would prefer to keep it going because we use it. It has a very, very good CAC metric to it. There's a lot of interesting things you can do live on there, as you know. But nobody knows for sure until midnight on April 5th. Mm-hmm. And so we have, like everybody else, diversified like crazy in getting ready for whatever is coming, because we don't know with certainty. Most of the people involved have spent millions of dollars in legals trying to get this thing figured out. We'll see what happens. I'm optimistic, I always am, but I'm also realistic, and so we'll see. You must have a multi-platform strategy, which is why if you're spending, let's call it the hurdle, $50,000 a month in advertising, I don't care what platform you're on, you must test television. Mm-hmm. You will be shocked to find out that it, for many people, provides a better return than anything else, primarily because the cost of maintaining social media strategies around all the changes in the algorithms has gotten really expensive. And everybody knows that here. Everybody knows that. Returns have lowered, and there's a lot of noise out there. This is not, Anna's using the very specific aspect of retargeting that's available on digital and streaming. But that's not where the majority of money is spent on television. It's way back in original linear television. You have to tap that too. And as far as I know, Wonder Ads is the only platform that does it all. And look, I'm definitely talking in my book when I say this, but you should not believe me. You should test it for yourself. But I'd suggest do it when you hit $50,000 a month. Then it really starts to make sense.
Great. Well, we're down to just a couple of minutes left.
Can we talk about my watches?
You want to talk about your watches? All right. I mean, well, heck, we'll post it on social. I think what would be really valuable for the audience, we have a couple hundred founders out there. We've seen some really great examples of the type of talent that you do like to invest in. I think On just kind of was sharing that she found Shark Tank to be more stressful than being an ER doctor, which is, I could understand that. But what are you looking for? What qualities, what experiences are you looking for, Kevin, in a founder?
At heart, Joseph and I, we're a hustler. And I feel like Mr. Kevin OLeary is a hustler. We saw how he hustled during QVC. So, it's just, the business world is crazy. Coming from a medical field into the business world is very volatile. And you got to be able to ride that wave, hustle, and just, tackle it out and just be fighting all the time.
Mm-hmm. Kevin, what would you say to that? What's about Rob?
They're both great storytellers. Oh. You don't want to back an entrepreneur that can't tell a story. They both can tell a story, and they can say, they can tell you their story in 90 seconds or less. I don't back anybody that can't tell a story, and it has to be authentic. These are authentic stories, they're real stories. This whole thing of Mama Lau's recipe, you should have seen her. She was a whirling dervish on Shark Tank with this, because she's in a total commodity business.
Yep.
But she told a great story, and I loved it, and we've been blowing this business up, and now using television. Rob, same deal. I mean, it was air in a can. No.
Yeah, Rob, how crazy did you feel? I mean, you basically invented a new category.
We still are, actually, so I'm still crazy. I want to expand on one point in terms of TV. When we first got started with TV, we thought it was kind of like top of funnel, like just in general. What we found is that it's not so much, you can really measure who's coming to your website after. Atari, actually, the platform has been great for it. So we were really able to measure the people, and by station, by ad spend, by everything, by demographic, who's going to your website after that ad runs. And then they talk about A/B testing, whether run on Fox or Reels or Be in Sports. It's really it's been a great experience in terms of, because you think about socials and you can really track your CAC and ROAS. I didn't think you could do that with regular TV, and you can. So that was kind of a neat thing that we've been experiencing, and trying to pour more fuel on it.
I love that. So we'll be singing CAC and ROAS. Our last question, though, Kevin, has to be, what do you never want to see again in a pitch deck?
Hot sauce. I don't want to see another hot sauce. I can't take it anymore. I mean, to think that you can break into an ancient category that is hardly growing with another hot sauce, that's a definition of living hell on earth. And no, if I ever see another hot sauce, in fact, no. Because there's so many people that think they can break into the hot sauce market. Sure, it's a multi-billion-dollar market. Every iteration of hot sauce has been done 1,000 times. So please, no hot sauce deals.
All right, words to live by. Well, thank you to the three of you, and thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.